Hi, I'm Jennifer Dow, and right now we're in Lower Queensbury, New Brunswick at the Kendall Homestead, which is the original property of the Black Loyalist Solomon Kendall, which is my ancestor. I can date this property back to 1825 for sure that it's been in the family, but we have reason to believe that it's the original Solomon Kendall obtained the land earlier than that.
Can you tell me a little bit about who Solomon Kendall was and why he's so interesting in terms of Black Loyalist history?
Solomon Kendall's interesting because he served with the Guides and Pioneers, which was a British regiment. So he was most likely a slave prior to working for them. I found evidence of him on many of the muster rolls from the time. He was even taken prisoner in South Carolina at one point in time. He would have come in 1783 with the Guides and Pioneers. He doesn't appear in the Book of Negroes at all, but there is documentation that he came with them. In 1785, I found a document listing all the Guides and Pioneers, who they came with for family, and where they settled. Solomon is listed as coming with a wife and a child under 10 at the time. According to some deeds that I found that his wife's name was Priscilla, which we actually see in future generations, children that had the first name Priscilla, named after her, I'm assuming. So Solomon also appears on a couple other court documents that I had found, where in some he was the defendant and some he was the plaintiff. And those are dated out of the early 1800s.
What did Solomon Kendall do once he came to New Brunswick and sort of became established here?
He farmed. So he ended up on this land and actually farmed it. But what else he did is he made this kind of a safe haven for any of the blacks in the area that didn't have anywhere to go or couldn't raise their children, because it was quite often that people would have to move from farm to farm or go different places to find work, and they were unable to raise their children. So this became the place where many different children from many different families ended up and were actually raised here.
And can you tell me a little bit about their Solomon Kendall's descendants and what happened to them and some of their names?
So some of Solomon's descendants, there was actually 3 generations named Solomon Kendall. My line comes from the 2nd generation of Solomon Kendall. His son, William Kendall, is actually buried on this property at the gravesite. He married a woman by the name of Mary Jane Hewen, and they were also well known for taking in other people's children. And basically, if anyone needed anything, they didn't have a lot, but they would do whatever they could. If someone showed up, they'd always invite them in and offer them food. From then, my great-grandmother's name was Maud Kendall, and she actually married into another Black Loyalist family, William Marr, who was a descendant of Enos Loopy, who was also a Black Loyalist that came here in 1783. Now, William and Maud actually had 3 children. There was their daughter Thelma, who married into the Nashes, which is another well-known family in Fredericton. Their son Hewlett Marr, and their son John Marr. John Marr was my grandfather. John served in World War II, and at that time, story is that he had to actually send back all of his pay to the farm because they were risked losing the farm at the time. So basically everything that he made came back here. Hewlett Marr was actually a blacksmith in the area. He apprenticed under Vic Kelly, who was a well-known blacksmith. He actually went to work at King's Landing when they first started building King's Landing. Now, I've talked to people at King's Landing, and Hewlett was known as being one of the best blacksmiths they ever had. Any of the intricate ironwork that you would see there would be made by him, and is supposed to be initialed by him also. He did that for many, many years. Actually, this horseshoe would be one that Hewlett had made, because he had a blacksmith shop also here on the property. And he would travel around to shoe horses also, to different farms and things like that. Hewlett was the last descendant to live on this property, passing away in 1999. And sometime in 2000, they burnt down the old house, and since then the land has been vacant. So I'm just trying to make sure it's not forgotten.
What would you like to do? What's your dream about this property?
To share the story. I would like to mark the graves so that future generations, nothing will ever happen. So people will know who this property belonged to, who was buried here, and kind of what their story is. And it's just about sharing the story so it's not forgotten to history.
Well, you're doing a very good job, I'd say, and the best of luck to you, Jennifer.
Thank you.